Hello, everyone. Let's wait for one more minute, and then we can start. People are joining. Thank you. Today. So please stay with me for the next 2 hours. So in the framework of the Vietnam Circular Economy Hub, we organize a series of webinars serving as a platform to showcase circular initiatives, policy, regulations, lessons learned, technology that foster collaboration among networks and stakeholders, offering opportunities to exchange resources, materials on goods and services. So this is the 6th webinar in the series with the title Unlocking Value for Waste in Circular Agriculture. Unlocking Value for Waste in Circular Agriculture. That is the title of this webinar. So the Vietnam Circular Economy Hub is a joint initiative developed and composed by UNDP and the Institute of Strategy and Policy on Natural Resources and Environment is FONRE under MONRE, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. And for those who have not know about the platform, you can find more information via the link in the chat box that you can see now. So a quick note on languages. Also, please follow instruction on the chat box for you to select Vietnamese or English. And also, please change your name, starting with the name and then organization for better exchange, even though we are virtual, but we know who you are and where you're from. So it's better for us later on for speaking and also for later networking. So without further, let's start it. So for today, with this 6th webinar, we are honored to have welcome speakers and panelists. The first one, Dr. Torsin Sommerin, researcher, circular economy and waste management from the International Water Management Institute. So can you raise your hand, Mr. Torsin? And the second speaker is Ms. Cẩm Thúy, the coordinator of the Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture in Vietnam. Ms. Thúy, can you also raise your hand? The next one is Mr. Quất Quang Hưng, Director of Corporate Affairs, Nestlé Vietnam. Mr. Hưng. And last but not least, Mr. Pierre Pus, Managing Director, Big Dutchman Vietnam. Yes, Peter? So for today, they will share different aspects, from their experience, from what they are doing. And after that, we will move to questions and answers. And then, yes, please, and we would also have, try to increase and maximize the interaction between audience and speakers. Therefore, you can put the questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can turn on the mic so you can speak directly to the speakers. And this webinar is recorded, and all the presentations and materials will be circulated after the webinar and upload in the Circular Hub website that I have the link before. So let me start by first saying that agriculture is very important for the Vietnam's economy. And the growth rate of the agriculture sector is about 2.5 to 3.5% annually. And the agriculture sector not only transforms the socio-economic status of Vietnam, but also ensuring food security, reducing poverty, boosting agricultural export, and providing livelihoods for nearly 40% of the country's workforce. And this is still a very important sector, the key sector in the Vietnamese economy. But of course, with this growth, also brings a lot of challenges and a lot of issues like the regulation of waste and byproducts, also the greenhouse gas emissions. And in 2020 alone, Vietnam, emitted an estimated about 160 million tons of waste, primarily comprised of byproducts from the harvesting and processing of agricultural products, as well as the waste from the livestock industry. And according to some estimate, agriculture contributes to about 19% of national greenhouse gas emissions, making it the second highest emitting sector after energy. And you can see the second highest emitting sector. So we need to pay attention to this one. And so with all the challenges, circular economy has emerged as a powerful way to address these issues. And it will tap into, the potential of reusing, recycling agricultural byproducts and waste, and also managing them, and also how to create substantial economic values. So, and if different practices like pellet production, biomass power generation, animal bedding, composting, and biogas not only reduce the reliance on new resources, but also contribute to sustainable energy use by cutting down the greenhouse gas emissions. And, recognizing the importance of this, government of Vietnam has taken, different strategic steps with the draft National Action Plan on Circular Economy, which highlights the imperative to reuse and recycle prioritized products, materials, byproducts, waste, and agriculture. And also last year, the government also issued a national strategy for sustainable agriculture and rural development. And in this strategy, also promoting circular economic models towards sustainable agriculture production. And another very important document with high commitment from the government of Vietnam is the national determined contributions to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And in that NDC, we always call it NDC, the National Determined Contributions. And the NDC also emphasizes the need for solutions to treat and reuse byproducts and waste in agricultural and livestock production. And another aspect also very important, there are new environmental regulations from agricultural import markets like the US, like the EU, or even Japan with agricultural products from Vietnam. This reaffirms the needs of sustainable agricultural production if you want to export the products to overseas markets. So with that, throughout our session today, we not only discuss the critical aspects, but also explore some successful showcases of circular business models and cutting-edge technologies. And these examples highlight innovative ways to, valorize use of waste and byproducts, extending the value chains. The aim is not just manage waste, but to increase the values from the waste, and finally contributing to a more sustainable and efficient agricultural sector. So it has been long, so I don't take further time from speakers. Very honored to have you here today. And as I said earlier, we have 4 speakers today. And now let's start with the first speaker, Dr. Torsin Somarin, an expert in the field of circular economy and waste management from the International Water Management Institute, IWMI. And we are very, very pleased and very delighted to welcome Mr. Rin today. And as UNDP and IWMI are about to kickstart a new partnership to train farmers into two value chains, coffee and rice, in adopting circular practices. So on behalf of UNDP, allow me to extend our sincere appreciation to IWMI colleagues for this meaningful collaboration. So Dr. Torsin is developing holistic, climate-smart, circular, nature-based solutions to transform the future of water and food security. And she has been carry out many researches and many publications in circular economy. So welcome you, Miss and Dr. Torsin. The floor is yours.
Okay, first, thank you so much, Bean. I hope you can hear me well. So I'll try and share my screen.
Yeah, we can hear you well, and please share. And we also see the screen as well.
Okay, good. So thank you so much for inviting me to this presentation. Our team is delighted to be here. And I would like to say good morning to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, because I'm in the part of the country. It's morning here. One of the things that our research is focused on as a water management institute, we look at water pollution. That's an aspect of the work we look at, and circular economy plays a major role in reducing and eliminating pollution in water sources, and that's, you will see that water cuts across many of the things I'm going to talk about. My presentation today is on creating value from agro-waste and byproducts through circular economy innovations. Just to give you an overview of what the presentation will cover, intuitively from the webinar series title, I'll talk about circular agriculture, what we mean by circular agriculture in the first place, talk about the different types of circular economy business models and which applies to agriculture in that sense. I would also introduce what we call resource recovery and reuse business models and innovations, technology innovations that we use and scale up in HEMI. But just to give a sort of an overview of circular agriculture and why are we interested in circular agriculture? We know that the conventional way of doing agriculture, where we clear land spaces, use water resources without restoring water or regenerating water, the sort of practices that exploit the use of nutrients in agricultural soil, damages the environment, and I think being already cited a number of statistics to support that. We know that the traditional agriculture is quite linear, and if you look at the way urban cities are growing, the urban cities are more like the nutrient sinks, and the rural areas where growth is, where this agricultural produce are being made, are being depleted of nutrients. And so the focus here in circular agriculture is to minimize the impact of agriculture in all of these aspects: climate change, improve freshwater availability, reduce biodiversity loss, and water pollution, which is our interest in from a water management lens. So probably just to give you the context of what we refer to circular agriculture, in a very nutshell, considering people come from different backgrounds, is minimizing the external inputs of natural resources or of materials in agriculture as a whole. It covers quite a broad spectrum of activities, but I think it is underpinned by 3 circular economy principles. And the essence here is that we move from a very linear model where we extract resources and degrade the environment by disposing waste into the environment to a circular model where we close nutrient loops, and that's in a biological cycle. We close nutrient loops In a technical cycle, we try to extend the product of materials for as long as possible, and that also applies to agriculture. And the other aspect of the circular economy principles, obviously, it's around regenerating nature, not just passively, but enhancing nature. And as part of EMI, we have an initiative called Nature Positive Solutions, where we look at nature-based solutions in eliminating waste into the environment, but also actively using agroagronomy principles and trying to actively regenerate nature. Probably just to expand the circular agriculture concepts, I mean, from the across the value chain, from production of food and maybe animal manure, animal livestock, and things like that. When we look at the entire value chain from production to processing up to transportation and so on, we see that there are quite a number of circular business models, and I'll probably touch upon a few of them. We emphasize on one of them, but I'll probably just touch upon the other ones. So in terms of circular supply models, we have circular economy principles being applied to how materials are recycled, and that even applies to waste. We try to recover as much resources from waste so that this can reduce the amount of natural resources that is being exploited. There are sharing models around the use of agricultural, for example, agricultural tools, tractors, and things, many aspects of agricultural activities that can explore the sharing models and sharing of seeds, of water, and there are so many landscapes around that. Product service models and also product life extension models, where we consider, okay, how do we extend the life of materials and used in agriculture, and that also applies to tools and applies to equipment and so on and so forth. How do we design these materials that they have their life is extended, and also that they can be repaired easily or remanufactured. But my emphasis today is on resource recovery and reuse, and that is where EMI has a strong track record. We've developed a number of circular economy business models specifically around resource recovery from waste. And our approach to that is just looking at the end of life management of agricultural residues, of waste, organic matter in general, but in terms of agriculture, we're looking at agricultural residues. And what we're trying to do is to minimize, waste production, design agricultural systems in such a way that you minimize the use of water, you recover as much nutrients, you recover as much materials if possible from waste products. And then when we want to just probably expand on this resource recovery and reuse and the emphasis on agricultural waste, and my emphasis on agricultural waste, I'll probably just give a broad definition for that as well. And that includes all leftovers, agricultural residues from agricultural activities, all manners of waste that are generated across the value chain. Our emphasis in HIMI are more on crop residues, on organic waste that are generated from food processing, for example. And I've cited a few examples of this. So, for example, in crop residues, there are a number of branches. We can talk of coffee husk, we can talk of rice husk, and so many other agricultural residues that are generated from the food production cycle. But from the food processing aspect as well, there are a number of effluent that are generated, and this effluent contributes towards greenhouse gas emissions and things like that. And so our emphasis is how to recover value from this waste stream. And based on circular economy principles, we have to consider recycling these materials at their highest value and getting as much value out of waste streams. I'm going to cite an example. I know Vietnam is one of the largest exporters and producers of coffee. And based on our collaboration with UNDP, we're looking at processing coffee waste. And if you look at the food, the production cycle or the value chain for coffee production itself, we see that there are many agricultural waste produced along the value chain. From the bean production cycle, where we have the waste coffee bean, either, for example, reject coffee bean, from leaves and branches that are broken, or during pruning and all the activities during the production cycle. And we can also consider the processing cycle as well, where we produce, depending on the kind of processing method, whether wet or dry. There's coffee husk, there's a lot of effluent generated in a wet process. If we consider also the consumption aspect of it, and we know that across the world there's quite a lot of consumption of coffee. I think around 2 billion coffee consumed every day, and about 2 million tons of coffee waste generated, and that includes packaging waste. And we need to explore how do we actually use all of this waste in such a way that we minimize waste pollution into the environment, we extract as much resources from these waste products and put that back into agriculture or into other sectors of the economy. And then we consider how do we actually ensure that we are growing coffee in a sustainable way. That's probably just a summary of resource recovery in that sense. And so what we look at at HIMI, obviously there are diverse waste streams we work with. I've just cited an agricultural waste, which falls in all of these sort of categories. But we also work on wastewater and diverse waste streams. But we know that aside having diversity of waste, we also have diversity of technologies that can be used for converting this waste. But the end goal is that we want to come to this space where we derive value from it, and the value-added product we're referring to could be tailored for water for reuse, and that could be water for agricultural reuse or water for fertigation. That could be recovering nutrients from compost, from digestate, from anaerobic digestion plants and things like that. That could include energy recovery, either using bio-oil or biogas or briquette fuel, which are solid materials for energy generation, and that could be heat or for electricity generation. And finally, there are also other technologies we appropriate for producing protein or nutrients for fish supplementation or their feed formulation, and so on and so forth. I'll probably just cite some few examples of all these individual technologies or approaches that we use at HIMI, and some of the case studies in different countries. As part of the nature positive solutions that I mentioned, we're working in Kenya, converting agricultural waste residues, specifically into briquette fuel, and this is a carbonized briquette fuel. And the essence of this is that, for example, in the case of Kenya, women, there were a group of women who are small rural farmers. They produce sort of briquettes by hand, just for their own cooking needs. And so we brought them together into a sort of a cooperative. The group is still being formed. It's a project that will last until 2025. And so working with these women, teaching them or enabling them in how to produce briquettes sustainably, how to source materials, how the technology works. So we developed training manuals with them. We developed resources, and we had trainings in Kenya, for example. But we also have other facilities that produce sort of this non-carbonized briquette. And this technology, the essence of it, probably in a nutshell, is minimizing the use of firewood for energy generation for many communities, especially in Africa and South Asia. We see that the use of firewood is causing deforestation, and to reduce such practices in an area where there's large amounts of agricultural waste residues, these communities can actually harness those sorts of waste to produce energy products. And energy there could be for power generation. I mean, that's meaning in an industrial scale, maybe for example, an industry looking to produce energy, they can use this sort of briquettes produced and use that for their industrial heating application or for electricity generation. But for the particular case we're looking at, these women practically use them for their cook stove and so on and so forth. There are lots of opportunities around there. There's also the case of biodiesel production from waste, and the most appropriate waste for this sort of biodiesel production is waste products with high amounts of oil and fat, and that could include, palm oil, meal effluent. That could include cassava pulp, olive residues, and things like that, things that has high amounts of oil in them. And the process is based on esterification, and that is a chemical conversion route. However, there are more nature-based approach to these, where they use enzymes to break down the organic matter in the waste, and they mix that with a form of alcohol, which can also be obtained from a biological source, and we produce sort of like a crude oil, but that can be upgraded to be used in an internal combustion engine. The other approach we also work around, and that is on different scales. Obviously, biogas technologies is very widespread. Even in countries like Vietnam, we have anaerobic digestion as being one route to value recovery from waste. And the essence of this is that we have, very wet waste streams, and like food waste, market waste, that contains high amounts of agricultural products. If these sort of waste are first needs to be dried, and it takes a lot of energy, and that erodes the environmental benefits we want to get out of this. And so technologies like anaerobic digestion, which involve, breaking down organic matter in the absence of oxygen, it uses sort of these anaerobic organisms to break down organic matter to produce biogas. But the benefit actually not really the energy. I know there's a lot of emphasis on producing renewable energy from waste, but the emphasis is actually with the nutrients, because a large amount of digestate is produced from anaerobic digestion systems that has and that has a potential to enable can be used for soil conditioning, can be supplemented with fertilizer and used in agricultural fields, and that enables that sort of circular approach in agriculture, rather than having waste, going into landfills, or waste going into or being buried somewhere in an agricultural fields, and leading to emissions. One approach under the nature of positive solutions that we're exploring is black soldier fly larva production, and this sort of insects are very, very good at breaking down organic matter. The key product that comes from that is the compost that is generated. They actually digest and regurgitate out this frass sort of compost-like material, and that material also can be used as a nutrient for nutrient supplementation, either in animal feeding process, or either used as for cultivation of plants. But also the larva itself is quite rich in oil and protein, and so that can be extracted and processed further to produce cosmetics, to produce pharmaceutical products, depending on the kind of waste streams. I think we're exploring this sort of waste for fecal sludge management, but it can also be used for food waste and all that sort of waste. Lastly, probably not the last, but in terms of nutrient recovery, another technology we do work on a number of cases is composting, and this is of interest to a number of smallholder farmers because of high cost of fertilizer. They are exploring other options of minimizing the use of mineral fertilizer and the cost associated with that. So composting is quite a low technology, but also can be scaled to a very large scale. And in this case, we had a composting plant, a co-composting plant in Tumania in Ghana, where we mix fecal sludge material with market waste or food waste, and that material is blended in such a way that at least it helps with soil conditioning, and I think a lot of interest on mango farmers around the neighborhood trying to use that sort of material. Of course, the technology has its own challenges, it's quite labor intensive. Otherwise, you require some mechanized equipment for turning the compost, but it's something that's very useful in waste reduction. So you can reduce waste by almost 60 or 70% by using composting method, and you can reduce emissions significantly through that process. The final one that I'll probably touch on is on water recovery. This is of interest to us. Usually in conventional agriculture, there's an emphasis on use of freshwater resources. However, many nutrients are present in agricultural waste that can be used for fertigation. So rather than having fresh water mixed with fertilizer, you can have wastewater from agricultural residues or effluents being constituted in a way that it can be used directly for fertilizing plants and used in aquaculture and so on and so forth. So, but obviously that sort of technology requires a bit of careful thinking around waste treatment, what sort of waste is being used in treating that waste stream. So probably just to go back to the original content when I talked about coffee production, so that probably just across the value chain, we see that there's opportunity to recover nutrients, either as compost, recover water from the effluent for fertigation. We can think around energy product, voucher, briquette fuel, even biogas. If we consider the spent coffee ground, they can be fed to black soldier flies, and we can obtain nutrients. And any of these carbon materials can actually be, and there are very good examples of this across the world, where spent coffee grounds are used for textile production. A company using it for Jane's ink, and that's a sustainable source of producing ink for printers. There's a lot of emphasis around producing porous organic materials, specifically for wastewater treatments, and this sort of voucher can be used for that. There are companies looking at using spent coffee grounds, for example, for producing plastic and cosmetics. So there are quite a number of spectrum of products that can derive from agricultural waste, and I think that's the summary there. Obviously, with waste, there are lots of other considerations. So it probably a lot of assumptions that there's a lot of waste and we can use all of them. But in the real case where we've worked on, usually there's competition for resources. So farmers sometimes use some of this waste for mulching. For example, the leaves and the branches, they use them for mulching. There are diverse types of waste and diverse composition, meaning that these materials, some of them are more suitable for producing energy, some are more suitable for producing nutrients, and a poor understanding of that would reduce all the environmental benefits or the social benefits we're looking to derive from waste. Depending on the organic waste stream, there are risks also to health if it is purely managed. There are costs associated with transportation, if the distance between the waste source and the processing plant is quite far. So we do develop business models around this, trying to advise farmers on how to source the right waste, look at availability of waste, not just only temporarily, considering, okay, the waste is available from this particular farmer, but is it available throughout the year? Is it available? Is it spatially available very close by and can be collected? Is the waste resource cheap to collect? Is it available freely, or there needs to be an agreement? And there's a case study, I think in Ghana, where we set up a PPP partnership, public-private partnership. And one of the challenges that particular company had was actually sourcing waste, even though there was quite a lot of waste in the environment. There was a competitor who collected the waste and used it for something else. And there also maybe requirements around land and water, and we need to also consider the other factors like finance, access to finance, the training capability or training or awareness of those farmers for those technologies. So we work across those landscape just to ensure that we are not just only propagating the use of technologies, but also we are enabling the farmers to use those technologies. The other aspect I should mention with waste, obviously, is that some waste contain impurities. So we look at the business models on how to ensure that pretreatment are kept to a minimal. And for example, drying is very energy intensive. And there are alternative ways of drying that will not require using fossil fuel or using real energy sources, for example, using a solar dryer and things like that. Probably just in summary, just to summarize the essence of this talk is that there's possibility and there's a very high potential for producing for enabling food transformation, for example, enabling clean food production system by resource recovery, ensuring that we have this sort of closed loop economy around resources, around nutrients, and developing businesses that can recover waste products and use them for something valuable. There's a positive aspect towards nature where people benefit, the nature benefits, and there are no win-losses, but rather win-win situation. I would probably just pinpoint some resources that we've developed. So we developed this resource recovery from waste is a big manual or handbook on resource recovery from waste, and a number of case studies. I think we analyzed over 180 scenarios, and there were a lot of detail on about 60 of them. And if you want to explore, different business models on agricultural waste, on fecal sludge, on diverse types of organic waste, and this is a resource to look out for. It's free to download in this link. We also have other resource recovery and reuse series, more specific on technology. So you will find things around aquaculture, around composting, around briquetting, and so on and so forth. But that's where I will leave it. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions from you.
Thank you very much, Tosin, for a very interesting presentation. I hope that all the participants have a good information out of Tosin's presentation. And thank you very much for the examples. I mean, excellent examples from Kenya, from Ghana, and especially the coffee example. Very interesting. Later today, we will also have a presentation on coffee from Nextly. So let's see. Participants, if you have any questions for Tosin, you can put in the Q&A. And then after that, she can reply to the questions in the chat, or later on we will read out the questions for the interest of all the participants, and then we will answer live. So allow me to change the next speakers. Miss Nguyễn Cẩm Thúy from Vietnam, and now she will talk about the Vietnam Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture in Vietnam. So Thúy is the coordinator for the Vietnam, the Partnership of Sustainable Agriculture, and she has many years of experience in forestry projects. So Thúy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bình. Can you hear me? Let me share the screen.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. What's you sharing? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, so is my... Yeah, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nguyễn Cẩm Thúy. I'm the coordinator of the PSAF. The PSAF for it means the Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture in Vietnam. Today, I'm very honored to, on behalf of PSAF, to share with you the way we approach our partners, both public and private partners, to engage the circular transformations of agriculture in Vietnam. Of course, including the ways how we explore the opportunities together with our members to recycle and to reuse the agro waste in Vietnam. And so my presentations has 5 parts. First, I would like to introduce briefly about our organizations and also talk a little bit about the agriculture sectors, the Vietnam's agriculture strategy, and how the way we engage and promote circular agriculture within our network. And I would also give some specific examples showing our ongoing efforts in circular agriculture. And last but not least, we can see so many opportunities that we can collaborate with our members, and this also brings us to share some recommendation. Yeah. PSAF is very proud to be an entity under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And PSAF was established in the year 2010 under the initiative of World Economic Forums. And our duties is to serve MIRDs, the ministry, to reduce 20% of poverty, increase 20% of productivities, and decrease 20% of emission. Up to now, PSAF has 8 PPP task force, including coffee, tea, vegetable and fruits, fishery, rice, pepper and spices, livestock, and we have one cross-cutting PPP task force. This is agrochemicals. So far we established a strong alliance and partnership with over 120 organizations who come from government agencies, domestic and foreign invested companies, sectors, association, research institutes, and different international and national organizations. And our goal is to promote private and public partners to engage further in agriculture, sustainable agriculture, including circular transformation, to ensure not only the food securities, national food securities, but also we try to encourage our members to contribute to promote agricultural export. And with at the workshop today with the topics on circular agriculture, it is very aligned with the context where the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is now focusing on very much. We are focusing on many specific topics, we're talking about in general, we're talking about sustainable agriculture, but following with these general topics, we have a different specific topics we want to focusing on, like transformations, digitalizations, and even we touch also the very cross-cutting topic like women empowerment. With that topics, MIRD's mission is trying to transform our agriculture sectors from competing on price into competing on qualities, nutrition, and sustainability. And we also transform our sectors from markets, common markets, into niche markets with high quality specialties and sustainabilities, and transform from individual export company into a strong alliance to make sure we can develop a strong supply chains, and transform from single sectors, single values into the integrated multi-values. We try to connect agriculture sectors with other sectors like cultures or tourism. So PSAF is also very proud to be a unique multi-stakeholder platform to support our PPP task force member to introduce their initiative, their farming best practices, which can applicable to the all commodities. To do this, our PPP task force members are trying to build the trust and partnership, strong partnership with farmers, with all the actors in the supply chains, especially farmers. We try to set up a strong partnership between farmers and off-takers through cooperatives, and we use these partnerships as a strong foundation. And during the the process of the value chain, supply chain, we will add different topics in the supply chains to make sure that all the actors of supply chains can contribute to the sustainable agricultures. Of course, based on the priorities of certain PPP task force, we will have a certain prioritized topics to be mainstream in the supply chains. For example, for the topics on climate smart resilience or the topics circular agriculture, which must be the cross-cutting topics for all task force. But as I mentioned before, different priorities. So for the given period of time, we will have a different topics prioritized. So at the time for the time being, the coffee sectors is focused on the regenerative agriculture. For the topics decarbonization, it is a top priorities for livestock and rice sectors, and for the digitalizations. It is a cross-cutting topics for all the commodities. However, at the time being, PSAF decided together with our partners to just pilot digitalization in the forest, in the rice sectors. To pilot this topic in the rice sectors to support our farmers to access to the microfinance, and hopefully we can have the successful business case for rice, and we can expand to another crops. So this part brings me to share with you some specific examples showing the different model using the agro waste as inputs for other sectors. The first example you can see on the screen, within the partnership between GIZ and MARD, we developed a model using organic fertilizer composted from rice straw. These kinds of organic fertilizers are being used for mangoes. Also within the project site, they use these organics for mango sourcing areas, and they hope in the very soon they will apply for other fruits and vegetables in the Mekong Delta. And based on the business case findings by GIS, these kinds of organic fertilizers have farmers save up to 30% of nitrogen application. This morning I have just talked with the program officer from GIS as updated that this product is now highly hunted by the farmers communities in the Mekong Delta. And another example is the model using the big livestock biogas for tea processing. We use the bioenergy from livestock waste for drying tea in Anh Sơn, Nghệ An province. We also treat and reuse the waste residues after water separations as an organic fertilizer for tea plants. And the drying capacities for this model is around 20 kg per batch, and create good qualities tea. The capacity is also 4 times higher than the conventional system. And we have 2 batches per day, and only 1 person is needed to run this system. Last but not least, as also I would like to share the model using the corn cobs, the maize cobs, as fuel for agricultural products dryings. We collect the corn cobs and crush it into the powders and screen and drying this powder and press it into the fuel par. Based on the studies, business case analysis, the production's capacities is 1.8 tons pure charge per day. And these kinds of products helps to reduce the energy consumption by 30% compared to the fuel wood. We need only 2% to operate this system. And as you may know, PSAF is as a private and public coalition builder. We are aware of our very important role in collaborate with our members and convince and encourage them to minimize the waste by reusing and recycling the materials. As you may know, every year we have a series of sharing and learning workshop, and we can elaborate the collaboration opportunity with our members to expect that the circular agriculture can create a new revenue by sale of the byproduct such as organic fertilizers or the energy generated from waste. And one more thing, as you know, as I mentioned before, we have one crossing PPP task force on agrochemical, and we are planning to collaborate closely with our members to promote all the farming practices which can improve the responsible use and management of agrochemical to reduce and negative environmental impacts caused by agricultural sectors. So in terms of the resilience climate change, we know that the circular agriculture can enhance the resilience of farming system to the climate change by applying some diverse intercropping patterns. Some of our members are adopting the intercropping patterns among pepper, coffee, and durian in the Central Highland. We also adopting the drop irrigation system to save the water resources in the same area in the Central Highland. Some others members of PSAF also are adopting so-called IPHM, the Integrated Plant Health Management, which is co-developed by FAO and the Plant Protection Department. Well, with this concept, we consider the health of women, health of plant, and health of environment as an integrated entity, which we try to find the appropriate intervention to treat all of them well. That is one of our plan in the coming time. We can hopefully we can expand and upscale on the existing farming practices further, outreach further to our farmer communities. And last but not least, it's very important that PSAF has a very strong network, not only at the regional level, but also global level. We have the strong connection with Food Action Alliance, World Economic Forums. So we do hope that we can further collaborate with our network to make sure that the off-takers, the international buyers, or the end users can use their purchasing powers to not only influence the producer and farmers to produce high-quality products, but they also work together with us to create more sensitive, higher premium price for all the circular agriculture products. So the last slide brings me to share with you some recommendation which we hopefully all the opportunity will be into life. And the first is we propose that we will work with our PPP task force to raise awareness of all the actors of the supply chains to be aware of the importance of circular agriculture, and also identify the knowledge gaps. We can also conduct the training needs assessment if needed. And you may know so many innovation or the technology initiative available in place. And we no need to create the new things. Then we are planning to review all the potential technology and initiative to select the potential with the high feasibility for upscale. And of course, to make it into practice, we need to engage startups or agri-fintech companies to support farmers in upfront costs when transitioning to the circular practices. And also we need their finance funding support to scale the successful business case into a more large scope. And of course we need incentive policy from governments, as Mr. Bing mentioned. Mrs. Bing before also mentioned about the strategy for the government of the governments on the sustainable agriculture and rural developments. The government has a certain frameworks for sustainable agriculture. However, we haven't got any specifics, more deep dive into the circular agriculture. So hopefully we can get some more supports in terms of the policies on circular agriculture. And last but not least, yes, it's very important that whenever we produce products, we need the access to the markets. The important task of us is to work with our networks, with World Economic Forum, with Food Action Alliance, using the purchasing powers of the off-takers to invest more in our sourcing areas. And also we need to study the consumer willingness to pay for the circular agriculture products. And also we try to study further on the markets, which highly appreciate the circular agriculture products. That is some, that's for now. Thank you very much for your time and listening. So I would love to take any questions if time permits.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thúy, for a very interesting presentation, and congratulations, PSAF, of what we have done in the last kind of 13 years. And we can see the importance of different PPP partnership in different commodities in Vietnam. And in Thúy's presentation, you can see different very simple kind of models, like rice straw, like turning from corn cobs to fuel bars, to the big livestock biogas. Very simple examples, but very huge and great impacts on how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And if, all the last 5 key recommendations in Thúy's presentation can be carried out, I believe that we can achieve the circular economy in agriculture. So, and very interesting, I really like what Thúy mentioned, the new concept of integrated plant health management. So let's explore it further later on. So yes, the same. If you have any questions for Thúy, you can put in the chat or wait until the end. We will give the micro to you for the live questions and live answers. So let's move to the next presenters. Mr. Quoc Quang Hưng, he's from Nestle Vietnam. He's the Director of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Champion for Nestle Vietnam. And he oversees the creating shared value and corporate sustainability programs, stakeholders engagement, policy advocacy, corporate communications, and issues management. So Nestle has been a member of the Circular Economy Hub, and UNDP look forward to working with Nestle not only on the Circular Economy Hub, but also on deforestation-free commodities, especially in the Central Highlands with the new regulations. So over to you, Mr. Hưng.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so great. So thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure to be here today to present and share our story from Nestle Vietnam. Also it's our great pleasure. We are not just a member of Circular Economy Hub, but also we are the co-chair of PSAF together with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and also together with Ms. Thuy. So we have been also driving various sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture initiative in Vietnam. I think that in the sake of time and also in the sake of audience, so whom I see mostly are Vietnamese. So then I will present in Vietnamese with the slides in English, and I hope that it would be okay for all of you. Well, actually, my presentation will include several bài trình bày của tôi sẽ gồm có một số những cái phần sau. Thứ nhất thì tôi sẽ trình bày một chút liên quan tới Nestle Việt Nam, liên quan tới cái lời cam kết về phát triển bền vững. Sau đó thì tôi cũng sẽ điểm qua một đôi nét liên quan đến cái chuỗi giá trị bền vững về cà phê, cũng như là cái mô hình từ gạch từ hạt cà phê tới gạch không nung. Và cùng với đó thì tôi cũng sẽ trình bày về cái vấn đề liên quan tới tuần hoàn nước ở trong chế biến cà phê. Một đôi nét về Nestle ở tại Việt Nam thì Nestle có mặt ở Việt Nam từ năm 1995. Hiện nay thì Nestle cùng với
anh giúp share màn hình nhé, anh cho màn hình full đi ạ, vì anh chưa chạy slide.
Thế à? Ok, sorry, anh không biết là
Hiện tại đang nhìn thấy màn hình của anh rồi, nhưng mà đang nhìn thấy bài trình bày không phải ở full mode. Đấy, ok.
Được chưa em?
Được rồi ạ.
Ok, sorry. Rồi, nói tiếp một chút, tức là ở Nestle ở tại Việt Nam thì có mặt từ năm 1995 và cùng với cả La Vie thì là tập đoàn Nestle thì có hai cái pháp nhân ở tại Việt Nam. Cho đến nay thì Nestle có 2.800 nhân viên cũng như là 6 nhà máy ở khắp cả nước. Hàng năm thì Nestle thu mua quãng độ khoảng từ 700 triệu cho tới 800 triệu đô la tiền cà phê, và Nestle cũng là đơn vị thu mua cà phê, một trong những đơn vị thu mua cà phê lớn nhất ở tại Việt Nam. Nestle thì trong nhiều năm vừa qua thì Nestle cũng rất là tự hào, cũng đã được bầu chọn là một trong những cái nơi làm việc tốt nhất ở tại Việt Nam, và trong 2 năm liên tiếp thì Nestle cũng được bình chọn là cái đơn vị bền vững nhất bởi VCCI cũng như là Bộ Lao động Thương binh Xã hội cũng như Bộ Tài nguyên và Môi trường. Đối với cả Nestle, tập đoàn Nestle thì cách đây độ khoảng gần 3 năm thì tập đoàn Nestle cũng có một cái lời cam kết là liên quan tới bền vững. Nói một cách rất là đơn giản thì tiếng Anh thì chúng ta nói rằng là to advance regenerative food system at scale. Tiếng Việt thì có thể nói rằng là thúc đẩy các hệ thống thực phẩm tái sinh ở quy mô lớn. Tại sao lại là cái lời cam kết này? Thực ra tập đoàn Nestle cũng là một đơn vị đi đầu về thực phẩm trên thế giới, và chúng tôi tin tưởng rằng là cái sức mạnh của thực phẩm nó cũng sẽ giúp mang tới cái chất lượng tốt hơn cho cuộc sống tốt hơn cho các cái thế hệ hôm nay và mai sau. Thế thì đối với cả các hệ thống thực phẩm, ở đây muốn nhấn mạnh là các hệ thống thực phẩm tức là tất cả những cái tác nhân, tất cả những cái mắt xích chuỗi, cũng như là những cái gọi là vai trò mà đóng góp ở trong toàn bộ cái chuỗi giá trị của chuỗi thực phẩm. Còn khi mà nói đến cái chữ thuật ngữ gọi là tái sinh ấy, thì tái sinh ở đây thì Nestle không muốn chỉ dừng lại ở phát triển bền vững, mà đồng thời là mong muốn làm sao có thể là đi xa hơn, tức là tập trung vào vấn đề về tái tạo và tái sinh. Thì cái điều này nó cũng đã thể hiện rất là rõ ở trong cái slide kế tiếp, đó chính là tái sinh thì đối với cả tập đoàn Nestle thì chúng tôi coi như đó là một cái phần mở rộng của phát triển bền vững. Phát triển bền vững là cái điểm khởi đầu. Tuy nhiên phát triển bền vững thì cần phải đóng góp nhiều hơn. Thông qua đó thì làm sao để có thể tái sinh cái hệ ờ, toàn bộ cái hệ thống thực phẩm, toàn bộ cái hệ đa dạng về sinh học, và đồng thời là tức là phục hồi và đem lại cái sự đa dạng về cả sinh học nữa. Thì cái điểm này cũng được phản ánh ở trong cái nó gọi là cái khung thương hiệu của Nestle. Ờ, Nhìn vào đây thì chúng ta thấy rằng là có một cái hình tròn. Hình tròn này nó là tổng hợp của ba cái lĩnh vực, ba cái yếu tố, đó là Nestle mong muốn tạo ra tác động đối với cả con người, gia đình và thú nuôi. Nestle cũng mong muốn tạo ra những cái tác động tích cực đối với cả con người và hành tinh, và đồng thời là con người ở trong cộng đồng. Một cái vòng tròn kết hợp thì nó mang tính chất là kết nối với con người làm trung tâm, và đồng thời nó cũng thể hiện cả một cái hệ thống liên tục và luôn luôn là có sự liền mạch. Ở tại Việt Nam thì chúng tôi cũng có rất là nhiều những cái chương trình là ESG cũng như sáng kiến về phát triển bền vững, tập trung chủ yếu vào bốn cái lĩnh vực liên quan tới là phòng chống biến đổi khí hậu, liên quan tới bao bì bền vững, tới thu mua có trách nhiệm, và đồng thời là quan tâm cũng như là bảo vệ bảo tồn nguồn nước. Ờ, quay quay trở về cái chủ đề chính hôm nay của cái phần trình bày và chia sẻ, thì Nestle như ban đầu tôi cũng đã nói, thì Nestle ở tại Việt Nam cũng là một nhà thu mua cà phê rất là lớn. Tuy nhiên bên cạnh đó thì chúng tôi cũng có những cái chương trình mà hợp tác với cả nông dân trong 12-13 năm liên tục. Đó là cái chương trình mà giúp cho người nông dân có thể là canh tác cà phê bền vững ở tại các tỉnh Tây Nguyên, 4 năm tỉnh Tây Nguyên. Trong 11-12 năm vừa qua thì chúng tôi cũng đã giúp hỗ trợ cho người nông dân à, tái canh cây cà phê, và cho đến nay sau 12 năm thì chúng tôi đã giúp cho họ tái canh được hơn 63.000 hecta cây cà phê già cỗi. Chúng tôi cũng tổ chức rất là nhiều đợt tập huấn liên quan tới nông nghiệp bền vững và nông nghiệp tái sinh. Cho đến nay thì cũng đã có khoảng trên 330.000 cái đợt tập huấn khác nhau, giúp cho người nông dân có được kiến thức tốt hơn, đặc biệt là kiến thức canh tác bền vững. Với các cái kiến thức canh tác bền vững này thì người nông dân đã có thể tiết kiệm tới từ 40 đến 60 lượng nước tưới tiêu dành cho cây cà phê. Như các anh chị cũng biết là đối với cả cây cà phê thì nó đòi hỏi một cái lượng nước tưới tiêu rất là lớn. Và cái việc sử dụng nguồn tài nguyên nước nó cũng rất là quan trọng, và đặc biệt là với những cái kiến thức mới, với những cái công nghệ, rồi với những cái biện pháp canh tác mà bền vững hơn, thì người nông dân đã có thể tiết kiệm được nhiều nước ừ, cho tưới tiêu cây cà phê. Bên cạnh đó thì người nông dân cũng giảm được cái việc sử dụng phân bón hóa học và sử dụng nhiều hơn các phân bón hữu cơ và các phân bón organic. Cho đến nay thì họ cũng đã giảm được tới 20% các cái lượng nước, lượng thuốc trừ sâu cũng như là phân bón hóa học. Với những cái kiến thức canh tác bền vững được giới thiệu thì nguồn thu nhập của người nông dân cũng được cải thiện đáng kể. Cụ thể là từ 30 tới có những cái hộ gia đình tới 100 và thậm chí hơn 100%. Thu nhập được cải thiện bằng cách là thông qua những cái mô hình trồng xen canh thích hợp với các loại cây khác nhau. Cái điều này không chỉ giúp cho người nông dân có thu nhập tốt hơn, mà đồng thời là giúp cho cái việc là bảo vệ, duy trì được các cái sức khỏe của đất và tính đa dạng sinh học của cái khu vực trồng trọt. Ờ, Đấy là đối với cả cái lĩnh vực ở trên các trang trại cà phê của Nestle. Thì đối với cả cái vấn đề về sản xuất thì hiện nay ấy, thì nhà máy Nestle có cái nhà máy sản xuất cà phê lớn và hiện đại thuộc loại bậc nhất của tập đoàn, hiện nay đang được đặt ở tại tỉnh Đồng Nai. Cho đến nay thì tất cả các nhà máy của Nestle đã đạt được mục tiêu là không phát thải chôn lấp ra môi trường, và cái mục tiêu này cũng đã được thực hiện vào năm 2015. Đối với cả nhà máy về sản xuất cà phê thì chúng tôi áp dụng các cái mô hình liên quan tới kinh tế tuần hoàn, ví dụ như là mô hình từ hạt cà phê tới gạch không nung, hoặc là cái mô hình về tuần hoàn nước. Cho đến nay từ 60 cho tới 65% các cái lượng nước thì đã được tuần hoàn và tái sử dụng. Và các cái chất lượng nước mà được tuần hoàn và tái sử dụng này thì đạt những cái yêu cầu rất là khắt khe của Bộ Y tế, và đạt được cả cái mức độ về chất lượng nước có thể sử dụng để cho uống, tức là mức độ hạng A. Đối với cả lĩnh vực về tiêu dùng ấy, thì ngoài cái vấn đề về nâng cao nhận thức cho người tiêu dùng về các cái vấn đề về 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 kinh tế tuần hoàn cũng như là phát triển bền vững, thì một trong những cái mục tiêu mà chúng tôi đã và đang tiếp tục là thúc đẩy, đấy chính là làm sao để có thể là chuyển đổi cái bao bì sang cái bao bì bền vững hơn và có thể tái chế và tái sử dụng. Hiện nay thì các cái bao bì của chúng tôi, đặc biệt là đối với cả các cái sản phẩm Nescafe, thì đang được chuyển đổi từ đa lớp sang đơn lớp để dễ hơn trong vấn đề về tái chế. Đồng thời cũng chúng tôi cũng kết hợp với các cái đối tác, với các đơn vị khác nhau để có thể giúp mà thu gom và tái chế các loại chất thải từ bao bì. Thì đấy là một số những cái nét chung về cái chuỗi giá trị cà phê một cách bền vững của Nestle. Liên quan tới cái mô hình từ hạt cà phê cho tới gạch không nung, thì như mọi người cũng có thể thấy trên màn hình ấy, với những cái hạt cà phê mà chúng tôi thu mua từ Tây Nguyên, thì chúng tôi đem về nhà máy chế biến cà phê. Và đối với cả à, trong cái quá trình chế biến ấy, thì sẽ tạo ra, nó gọi là một số những cái loại bã cà phê. Cái bã cà phê thì được thu gom và được xử lý để có thể là tạo ra nguyên liệu chính dành cho lò hơi. Và những cái nguyên liệu này thì được sử dụng để đốt lò hơi, và cùng với một số những cái vật liệu khác, như ví dụ như là những cái pallet gỗ mà được thải bỏ, thì chúng tôi cũng sẽ sử dụng làm những cái nguyên liệu đầu vào để đốt cho lò hơi. Và ờ, trong cái quá trình đốt lò hơi ấy, thì chúng tôi có sử dụng một số những cái loại vật liệu để duy trì nhiệt trong lò, đồng thời giữ cho nhiên liệu cháy tốt, đó là cát. Và cái cát thải của từ lò hơi này thì chúng tôi sử dụng để làm sản xuất gạch không nung, và cái chất lượng gạch này cũng đạt tiêu chuẩn xây dựng của Việt Nam và có thể sử dụng như những cái loại gạch khác trong xây dựng các công trình dân dụng và các công trình công nghiệp. Trong cái quá trình mà chế biến về cà phê ấy, thì cái tro của cái lò hơi ấy, cũng như là một số những cái loại mà chất thải cô đặc thì cũng đã được sử dụng để làm phân bón vi sinh. Thì đối với cả cái quá trình mà từ cái hạt cà phê tới viên gạch không nung này thì nó trải qua rất là nhiều công đoạn khác nhau. Thì đối với cả cái công đoạn cuối cùng là khi mà cái bã cà phê mà được sử dụng làm phân bón và cát thải cà phê được sử dụng gạch không nung, thì chúng tôi kết hợp với các cái đối tác mà có cái thế mạnh về mặt sản xuất những cái vật liệu cũng như chất liệu này để có thể là cùng xử lý và chế biến. Thế thì cái kết quả của một cái chu trình này thì hàng năm thì chúng tôi có thể giảm được tới khoảng hơn 14.000 tấn phát thải, và 100% cái cát thải lò hơi thì được sử dụng để cho cái viên gạch sản xuất gạch không nung, cũng như là những cái bùn từ quy trình sản xuất cà phê thì được sử dụng làm cái phân bón, và 100% các cái bã cà phê thì được sử dụng làm cái chất đốt cho lò hơi. Bên cạnh đó thì ngoài cái vấn đề là không có phát thải ra môi trường, giảm thiểu tất cả những cái phát thải về khí CO2, thì chúng tôi cũng tiết kiệm được quãng được khoảng 50 trên 50 tỷ tiền nhiên năng lượng mỗi một năm. Và bên cạnh đó thì tôi sẽ giới thiệu một chút liên quan tới cái vấn đề về cái quy trình về tái chế nước ở trong sản xuất cà phê. Thì nước ở đây thì nước thải thì từ các cái dây chuyền thì sẽ được đưa vào qua bộ lọc và xử lý bằng các công nghệ sinh học, cũng như là một số những cái công nghệ màng lọc và xử lý thẩm thấu ngược. Sau đó thì nước sau đó sau khi sử dụng và được xử lý theo các cái quy trình này thì đạt được chất lượng nước uống theo quy chuẩn của Việt Nam. và Tổ chức Y tế Thế giới thì được tái sử dụng làm chất bù tháp giải nhiệt, bù nước nồi hơi và các dịch vụ khác phụ trợ, ví dụ như là lau sàn hay là lau máy, hoặc là trong khu vực dịch vụ công nghiệp, hoặc là dùng để tưới tiêu, hoặc là dùng để xả toilet. Thì đây là một số những cái công dụng chính trong vấn đề về sử dụng cái nước mà nó được gọi là được tái chế. Mỗi một năm thì chúng tôi có thể tiết kiệm được khoảng trên 112.000 mét khối từ cái công đoạn về tái chế và tuần hoàn nước này, và 60% trong số này thì đạt những cái tiêu chuẩn chất lượng rất là cao QCVN 012009 của Bộ Y tế. Một số cái lượng nước thì nó sẽ bị thất thoát trong cái quá trình mà sử dụng cho lò hơi, bởi vì nó sẽ bị bốc hơi. Chính vì vậy đấy, nó cũng là cái lý do mà các chị có thể thấy rằng là chỉ thu hồi được khoảng 60-65% mà thôi. Ờ, tôi còn 2 slide nữa, nhưng mà hai cái slide sau thì là 2 slide về kỹ thuật để giải thích một cách chi tiết những cái điều mà tôi vừa trình bày. Thì tôi nghĩ rằng là tôi sẽ không có đi vào sâu hơn nữa, bởi vì những cái thông tin này thì nó khá là kỹ thuật. Ờ, và thời gian thì cũng hết rồi, thì rất là cảm ơn sự chú ý của tất cả các anh các chị, và nếu có câu hỏi nào thêm thì rất là sẵn lòng để trả lời. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Hưng from Nextly. Thank you for sharing what Nextly has been contributed to the circular economy. And very glad to see Nextly commitments to sustainability. Go beyond sustainability with the concept of regeneration. And we hope that in the near future, Nextly will come up with more ideas, more initiatives. And now you save about 74% of the fuel source for the boiler. Hopefully in the next few years, it's not just 74%, but it can be 100%. And especially for coffee production in the Central Highlands, the reduction of water use and chemicals can be reduced more. So thank you very much once again, Mr. Hưng. And now, last but not least, we can move to the last speaker, Peter Bruce from the Big Dutchman, the world's leading provider of innovative equipment for modern egg, poultry, and pig production. So thank you very much for being with us today. And over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Ms. Bing. Let me try to share my screen.
Yes, please do so.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So, yes. So good afternoon. Indeed, last but not least, my name is Peter Buys, Managing Director for Big Dutchman Vietnam, and I'm going to present on turning livestock waste into profits towards circularity and decarbonization. So maybe before I start, a quick introduction in our company. So basically, Big Dutchman is world's largest independent solutions provider for egg, poultry, and pig production. Funny fact is that we are a German company founded in the USA by two Dutch brothers. We employ over 3,000 staff worldwide, around $1 billion turnover. Headquarters in Vechta, Germany, nearby Bremen. And here in Asia Pacific, we have a headquarters for the Asia Pacific region in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Here in Vietnam, we have around 60 people, 50 in Ho Chi Minh and 10 in Hanoi. And recently, we also are active in insect solutions, so farms for insects. So I think in the first presentation by Dr. Tosin, she was referring to black soldier flies. Now, basically, we can provide the farms for those black soldier flies. And we are also active in the greenhouse business, so for crop and flower growing activities. So what do we see with our customers? Actually, our customers have a huge manure handling problem. So that is actually our customers' main issue. So with that handling problem, there are storage and transportation issues. Basically, there is wet manure, which basically makes it difficult to transport and store it. And there are also a lot of costs associated with it. Now, if we then come to the neighborhood and community, of course, manure or animal waste comes with smell and odor issues, and it also attracts a lot of insects. So the impact environmentally is mainly on the runoff of valuable nutrients, greenhouse gas emissions, and sometimes also water contamination. And the good thing is that here in Vietnam, there is quite a lot of law enforcement, where also the earlier speakers were referring to from Vietnam, to make sure that this problem is solved. But in order to solve the problem, there also needs to be awareness and proper handling knowledge. So basically, our customers came with this problem, and then we sat together with our customers and said, okay, how are we going to solve that? But before I go into that, okay, maybe a little bit of an overview on the livestock farming carbon footprint. So this is data from McKinsey in 2020, and there you can see that agriculture, forestry, and land use change is contributing for 27% to the greenhouse gas emissions. Now, if you look at that orange piece of the pie, then you see that 8.3% is enteric fermentation. That's basically cow livestock industry. Sorry, it's not 8.3%, it's 8.3 gigaton. 2.1 gigaton is for rice cultivation. So due to the cultivation process, a lot of water is being used, and that water is basically starting an anaerobic process which emits greenhouse gases. And then number 3, 1.8 gigaton per annum is basically manure management, and that's where, yeah, I will talk a little bit further on. So carbon neutrality by 2050 is the world's most urgent mission, because we need to bring down carbon levels dramatically to avoid global warming. So that is also something which is applicable in the agricultural industry. So that's the carbon neutrality goal. And then if we look at the circular economy in our business, we took an example of a layer farm. So if you look here, the blue part are basically the layer hens who lay the eggs, but also have a lot of waste or manure. The manure goes into our environmental solutions, and via our environmental solutions, you can create a very consistent quality and good quality compost or organic fertilizer. Now, the organic fertilizer goes into the crops, the corn crops, and via the corn goes into the feed of the animals, and that's how you are creating a circular economy. So if you then look a little bit deeper into this model, then you basically, what does Big Dutchman do there? Now, basically, Big Dutchman is contributing to the green line. So let's start with crop production. As I said, it's feed. So, for example, corn is being eaten by the livestock. So the chickens, the layer hens, and the pigs. Basically, our customers make money with protein production. And then the byproduct is actually organic waste, so mainly manure. The manure can be composted. That compost or organic fertilizer can be sold, so that's a revenue stream. And simultaneously, if you use our Big Dutchman environmental solutions, you also are filtering or cleaning the air, and by means of that you have the carbon offsets which you can turn into carbon credits, which you either can use for to sell it, or you can of course use it to become, as a company, more carbon neutral. So that's basically the setup we have made for our customers. And the carbon credits, if you look at it from a circularity point of view, of course, can be used by energy companies or synthetic fertilizer companies who can then emit carbon again. So what is then the value proposition to invest in our manure treatment solutions? Now, it's basically to get rid of the waste. I think I already heard a lot of speakers talk about this. So we turn, on the one hand, we turn waste into profits, but also we make sure that there is zero waste. So to start with waste to profits, that's contributing to our customers' business sustainability. So they can make additional profit without negative impact. They have a minimal footprint, modular and a compact system, and long-term business growth. Now, and simultaneously, they also contribute to zero waste. So that's environmental sustainability. So nutrients are being recovered, the so-called NPK values, where other speakers were also referring to. Organic fertilizer, soil revitalizing, and also clean air. We then go to the next slide. This is a little bit what a ideal layer farm would look like. So basically you start here at the layer house. So you have the layer hens. The layer hens produce eggs. So the eggs are going into the egg room. And from the egg room, it goes to consumption to the supermarkets, the hotels, etc., etc. And then the manure goes via a conveyor system into our so-called optiplate or optisac, where the manure is being dried. Then the dry manure goes into a composting tower. There it's being processed for around 5 to 7 days, and from those towers it goes into a storage room, getting pelletized, and then it's ready to be used on the crops. So basically, directly or indirectly, this kind of layer farms contribute to 8 out of 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Of course, zero hunger is a very relatively logical one, but also if you look at responsible consumption and production, as I earlier highlighted, it is contributing to a circular economy again. So these are a little bit the modules that Big Dutchman environmental solutions have. So you start with the wet manure in a layer house or a layer farm, which is being collected, as you can see over here. And step number 1 would be to dry it in our optisac or optiplate. So it becomes drier. That dry manure or that drier manure is basically very valuable for our composting towers, where you can create already compost, but simultaneously you can also pelletize it. And pelletization, I will elaborate a little bit later on, that also has certain benefits for our customers. And then last but not least, when it comes to the carbon footprint, we have air cleaning units. And of those air cleaning units, you also have a byproduct, basically a sort of liquid fertilizer that can also be used to either spike or make the nutrient value of the compost better, or to directly discharge on the land. So if we start with the drying, so this is an example of a so-called drying tunnel from us, an OptiSec. So this is the top of an OptiSec, and it are actually several layers where hot air is blown into these layers to quickly dry the manure. And the reason why we are doing that, because manure needs to have a certain moisture content to be very effective in a composting tower. So this is a project with composting towers that is also connected to a so-called air cleaner. And then last but not least, you can, or our customers can choose to pelletize it. What is the benefit of pelletizing it? It's basically making the pellet or the compost more compact, so the volume is reduced, and it's easier to pack and easier to apply on the land. Sometimes you have countries with a lot of wind.
Oh, Peter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a very tough one. I guess maybe if we consider there's no limitation of resources like you've presented, one of the things that, at least from a water perspective, is water reuse is a major challenge. Obviously, there are barriers. People are a bit, I think it's cultural barriers of reusing water. And if there is an aspect where we don't have any constraints on resources, I think it is getting all wastewater to a level where we can get it up to the level of fresh water. Obviously, along that chain, there's different value proposition for wastewater, but getting it up to the level that you can put it back into agricultural agricultural systems as water, fresh water will be very good. Okay.
Can I share? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I would look at it from a perspective in my role. So if you have no limitations on resources, that basically means that you have a lot of money to invest. So I would generally ensure that livestock farmers are pre-financed, because investments in circular economy and the related capex is quite high. So I would make sure that farmers are pre-financed so that they can make money first out of the new equipment, and if they have the money, then they can pay me back. That would be in an ideal world the case. But a very good question. Thank you, Ms. Ving.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So money. Chị Thúy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. A very interesting question, Bing. Let me start from our roles. As you know, PSAF as a private and public coalition builder. So if there is no limited resources, this is the good news for us. We will take the roles as a coordinators. We will coordinate and create the partnership, a consortium which we can create the synergy with enough resources to upscale the existing business model. We still have a very a series of business model available, but I think in terms of scalability is still limited. So we would love to upscale all the existing ones.
Yes, thank you, chị Thúy Anh and anh Hưng.
I think it's a very tough question. So I think that it would vary according to, I think, country locations. even in one country. So, issues are very different. It could be land issue, it could be water related issue, it could be farmer issue. But I think that even if you have no limitation in terms of resources, if you have a lot of money, but without the right policy framework, without the support from and coordination from different stakeholders, I think it would make no difference. So that's the reason why we have PSAP, we have public-private sector collaboration. I believe a strong coordination between different various stakeholders, so that even without much resources, we could still make some impacts. And on the contrary, if we have a lot of resources, but without collaboration, without coordination across relevant stakeholders, we would not achieve anything.
Yes, thank you very much for the answers, and that leads to to further discussion. So we can see that there's a lot of initiatives, a lot of startups in Vietnam. I'm not sure about other countries, but in Vietnam there's, and I think in some countries as well, there are a lot of startups with new ideas on circular agriculture, like rice straw, like compost, like fertilizers, for example. But these ideas and these startups last very short term because they lack of finance, the lack of upscaling the models, the lack the customers, and so very few successful models exist. Nextly is a very big company, and that's why you can do what you can do and what you want to do to implement the commitments. Like big detachment, you're also successful because you're also international, multinational companies. So the question is, how big companies like Nextly, like big detachment, can support small, micro and small enterprises working on circular agriculture? So over to you, Anh Hưng and Peter.
So let me just go first. I think that's also one of the topics that we have discussed in PSAF. So recently we have come up with how to say food innovative hub. This is one of the big ideas that PSAP and member companies are discussing. So there are a lot of layers. There's a lot of actions, initiatives that we need to also to work on, especially also support for micro enterprises. I believe that it depends on the strengths of each company, each organization that we can leverage to support this kind of enterprises. For us, we focus more on small household farmers. That's also what we have done together with 20,000 farmers household in the Central Highland. So we supported them in terms of giving them training and how to say even drought resistant coffee plantlets, so that can help them to rejuvenate their old coffee trees and also help them to have better knowledge, know-how in terms of cultivation. I think that's kind of support that have been delivered to them in the last 12, 13 years.
Yeah, thank you very much for my turn, and thank you very much for supporting the smallholder farmers in Central Highlands, because for all the participants' information, the Central Highland in Vietnam is a main coffee production area in Vietnam, and most of the farm are very small, less than 1 or 2 hectares, and they do really need support and try to move towards circular agriculture, because the production there. For some part with Nextly support, I believe are sustainable, but the remaining still need a lot of kind of support and investment. So Peter, what would be the response?
So basically, I think there is ideally a combination of enhancing sustainability but also the economic viability of a model. And that's basically what we are trying to do. So indeed, I agree with Mr. Hang that training and knowledge is very important. So that's how we contribute in a smaller scale as well, mainly towards our customers and their customers. But on a different level, we also try to create a business model where you contribute to sustainability, but where our farmers also can get a additional source of income, and that's basically a win-win situation. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So now I would like to turn to Yan and Tosin. So based on the answers, the response from Mr. Hung and Peter, and that's the way that how to support, micro and small enterprises moving towards circular agriculture. So what can PSAP and what can the IWMI can do more in this area as well? Focus on micro, small enterprises and smallholder farmers or stakeholders.
I'd like you to go first. Yeah, that'll be something. So I think I can probably share our own experiences of working with smallholder farmers. And I think I cited an example in the presentation where we're working with women in Kenya, and they have small rural farmers, and I can understand the challenges you cited. That they don't have a lot of income to actually buy the equipment to actually do this sort of innovations that we're suggesting. For example, setting up a biogas systems, or probably setting up a black soldier fly system, even though they have the agricultural waste, they don't have the resources. And so that's why we do look into that space of business models for rural farmers. And one of the things we did with these women is by putting them into that sort of cooperatives, because individual funding might not be sufficient, but if they come together as a cooperative, they have more voice. And then we engage the municipal authorities, and that project is going on at the moment to try and put them into this sort of social enterprise where they work together. And we provide to them capacity building training. We teach them about the technology, about the approaches, about how to approach, how to get products, how to get the waste products, how to market their products, how to develop it as a business. And that sort of technical assistance, I think, is key. And I think that's one example that has been cited already.
Yes, thank you very much for the response, Tosin. And Chi.
Yeah, thank you, Bing. So regarding to your questions, first, I would like to thank Nestle as a very proactive in PSAF. Nestle also the lifting company, which have a very strong support with the smallholders, and Mr. Hung mentioned. Back to your questions regarding to how we can support for SMEs. So let me share with one example or one idea that one of our members is now piloting in rice sectors. So it's very difficult for the companies to access to the finance within our country in Vietnam. So the startup companies, especially IT companies, they access the venture capital, and they collaborate with venture capital, and also they try to convince the off-takers to their loop, so they can have a strong alliance in the closed loop of the supply chain, including off-takers, fintech companies, local bank, and cooperatives, farmer cooperatives, and farmer, and they run the supply chains to make sure that the smallholder can access to microfinance. And this is now piloting, and hopefully this model will be work well, and we can share this lesson learned through our platform, and hopefully we can expand to other PPP task force.
Yes, thank you, Chị. Yeah, I think PSAP can be a very good platform and the circular economy hub as well. I can see one person raise hand. Tuần, Quý Anh, can you unmute yourself and ask the questions and introduce yourself first before you ask the question?
Yes, hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much for all the speakers for today's very informative and interesting presentations. My name is Trân. I am from Habitats in Vietnam, and we are working on the cacao sectors. We are running an European Union's project which focus on the circular economy for the cacao in Vietnam. So I have a questions for Peter, because in your presentation you mentioned that your company did life cycle assessments in order to measure CO2 equivalent. So my question is that how often your companies did conduct that as a kind of assessment, and do you have any like a digital tool to measure these indicators in terms of daily basis or monthly basis? Yeah, thank you.
Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Tuan. That's a very good question. Now, basically, this life cycle assessment was done in Malaysia by an independent institution that had all the tools available. So basically, since it's an independent assessment, we did not provide the tools ourselves. They did it. Simultaneously, we are also looking in other countries to do a similar assessment. I think generally, if you look at the decarbonization or the emission of greenhouse gases, here in Vietnam, as far as I know it, the trading platform is not existent yet. So what we are actually looking for, and maybe that's also a good question to ask to the participants over here, is okay. If you have an independent assessment ready and you have the certification where you basically can say, okay, if you have a solution, then this is the carbon reduction that you're achieving. How can you then eventually monetize that in Vietnam? And as far as we know, so we are also still searching for certain answers, but that's not existent yet. So maybe a long answer to a relatively simple question. So to answer your question, no, we did not use our own tools. We used the tools of an independent assessment company. But to ask a question here in the panel is, okay, how, if you have then that data where you know that these solutions are decarbonizing, how can you monetize?
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer.
Yes, thank you, Trân, for the question, and thank you, Peter, for the response. I think, I think we also come to an end. So all the presentations and materials of this webinar will be shared with you. I can see Salome just raised a hand, maybe the last question before we come to the closing part. Salome, you can ask now, yes.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. A quick one. I promise I will not take much time. My name is Salome Gabriel-Xavier. I'm a researcher at the International Water Management Institute. So a question to Peter and Hong. I enjoyed your presentation very much, and it aligns with the work that we are doing. But I just want to understand the role of research in your activities. Do you collaborate with research organizations or academia to, when you are developing technical or business model solutions, market assessments, just to get an understanding of your process? Thank you.
So let me just go first. I think that for this question, I think I need to come back and check with my colleagues because the process has been going for quite a few years. and I have no visibility, honestly, for the start of this process.
Very good question. So, Big Dutchman, right now, as far as I know, we are not connecting to any research institution. You're referring to academia. We do have a couple of academia in our company that know everything about environmental engineering, etc. So that's basically the knowledge we are tapping onto. But basically, if you have suggestions for good partners, we are always interested.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anh Hưng and Peter for the response. And actually, there's a last question in the question and answer from Nguyễn Quang Lập. The question is, in the packaging waste of mushroom production, the mushroom substrate, e.g. Pleurotus species, is covered by PP plastic. I cannot sell it in the Mekong Delta. In other words, the used PP plastic is burned at farm. Please advise. So, who want to respond to this question? Maybe Thorsten?
Yeah, I was just trying to type a message to him actually. One advice would be obviously is depending on the waste management system available in the area, but I guess maybe there will be a hierarchy of options, probably rather than burning the waste at the plastic recycling opportunities to put that in through, even if that waste cannot be processed immediately into something valuable, I mean, up the chain, maybe into a biodiesel or something. But maybe another alternative option rather than burning the waste, because that's a really a negative, has a negative carbon footprint.
Yes, thank you, Thorsten, for the response. For this question, the circular hub, we also note down the question, and if we have further response, we will provide the response directly to you. So I think let's end the webinar. I know that if we stay on, there will be more questions and inquiries. But as I said earlier, all the webinars, presentations, material will be sent to you. And participants, if you have further questions or inquiries, feel free to contact us, the Circular Economy Hub here, our team colleagues here, and then we will contact with the speakers. And if you don't mind, I hope that you don't mind kind of responding all the new questions. And I just want to say that from today's webinar, from 4 presentations, we can see that and can hear that there are many ideas, many initiatives from very small scale to big scales to upscaling. And so it shows the importance of sharing the knowledge broader to, not only to like the participants of this webinar, but to broader population. So new ideas can come up because we learn from other people. We learn and then we grow and then we learn. So I hope that all of you today, especially speakers, please join with us to the Circular Economy Hub and also participants. And together with the Circular Economy Hub, we can, share the knowledge, build a partnership, and we all be part of the circular agriculture. So once again, thank you very much, our 4, speakers, very wonderful speakers, Ms. Thorsten, Ms. Thuy, Mr. Hưng, Peter, for sharing valuable information and experience. And finally, I would like to thank Ispare of Monterey, the